For now, let's get to the news. A man wanted in a deadly two-state shooting spree is now in police custody. Suspect Radee Prince was arrested Wednesday night. Hours earlier, he allegedly shot 5 co-workers in Maryland and another man in Delaware. At least 3 of the wounded have died. And another death is being blamed on the Northern California wildfires. Firefighters discovered the body of the 42nd victim on Wednesday. Officials expect the flames will be fully contained by the end of this week. The man who was shot by Billings police officers at a downtown motel is still in critical condition this morning. The suspect was shot multiple times in the torso by 2 officers when he swung a shotgun towards them. It all happened at the Lazy KT Motel in downtown Billings around 1 o'clock Wednesday morning. This after several reports of that same suspect arriving at the hotel and firing off a shotgun at the building. Police were still on scene Wednesday morning when the suspect returned for a 3rd time. They spotted him in a black pickup truck and heard the shotgun being racked. The officers warned him to drop the weapon, but instead pointed it at the officers, prompting them to fire off their duty rifles. Police Chief Rich St. John says he is absolutely confident the officers' actions were justified.
Faced with somebody who threatened their life with a shotgun that we know who had fired earlier in the day, and they responded appropriately.
The suspect's name is not being released. The officers involved are Matt Edwards, a 5-year department veteran, and Jeremiah Adams, who's been with the Billings Police Department for 4 years. They are both on administrative leave. The Billings woman who admitted she beat and helped dismember her boyfriend in 2015 will spend the next 40 years in prison. That sentence for 41-year-old Carrie Stanzover-Bull was handed down by Judge Michael Moses on Wednesday morning. She was sentenced to 60 years at the Montana Women's Prison with 20 years suspended. She pleaded guilty in July to the lesser charges of negligent homicide, assault, and tampering with evidence in connection to the death of her boyfriend, Jeffrey Hewitt. Investigators determined Hewitt was badly beaten by multiple people at Stanzover-Bull's apartment at the Ponderosa complex in Billings. Hewitt was left immobilized, suffering on a mattress for several days until his death. Authorities say Stanzover-Bull then asked her relatives for help destroying the body. Hewitt was beheaded and his limbs were removed. His remains were found a month later in a burn pile in Pryor. Stanzover-Bull first denied involvement, but later said she assaulted Hewitt because he abused her. Prosecutors say other people involved in Hewitt's death could be charged in the future. One of those suspects already facing charges, Patrick Stanzover-Bull, recently admitted he helped destroy evidence, including Jeffrey Hewitt's body. A relative of Carrie Stanzover-Bull, Patrick Stanzover-Bull, has yet to be sentenced. Meanwhile, a 46-year-old Billings man is accused of holding a woman against her will and trying to rape her. Arthur Johnson pleaded not guilty Wednesday in Yellowstone County District Court to attempted sexual intercourse without consent, strangulation, and kidnapping. Last week, officers responded to an early morning disturbance at a home on Lincoln Lane in Billings. When police arrived, the man inside refused to open the door. The woman had left a post-it note on the door stating she needed help. She flicked a lighter, showing police to the part of the home where she was located. Police then kicked down the door and Johnson was arrested. The victim later told police he prevented her from leaving the house and tried to rape her. Johnson is being held at the Yellowstone County Jail on $160,000 bond. Turning now to state news, it took a while, but Montana has received a 1-year extension to come into compliance with the Real ID Act. The extension runs until October of next year. That means Montana residents will still be able to use their current driver's license for domestic travel for at least another year. The Real ID Act requires a set of standards for the identification cards and driver's licenses. In 2007, Montana lawmakers passed legislation preventing the state from complying with the Real ID Act, but the 2017 legislature changed that. The state of Montana plans to issue Real ID compliant IDs by January of 2019. Residents have the option to choose a Real ID compliant identification, but those IDs will cost an extra $25. For those wanting to upgrade their ID outside of their renewal window, that will cost them $50. On to campaign news. More than 54,000 ballots will begin arriving in Billings mailboxes today for the city's upcoming general election. More than 78,000 ballots were mailed countywide on Wednesday. All county residents will vote on the proposed safety mill levy to support the county attorney's office, while voters in Billings and Laurel will choose a new mayor. In Lockwood, voters will choose whether or not to begin the process that would allow the school district to begin the design and land purchase for a new high school. Laurel voters also have a high school and elementary bond issue up for a vote. Those mail-in ballots must be returned by 5 p.m. on Election Day, Tuesday, November 7th. Meanwhile, Billings School District 2 and the union have reached a contract for teachers after the last one expired in July. An overwhelming 91% of the Billings Education Association approved the contract. It's a 3-year agreement that is retroactive to July 1st. The new contract, if okayed, would provide a 1% raise this year with 2% increases for the 2 years after that. It also provides opportunities to increase dual credit offerings. It would allow teachers from the high school and career centers to get certified with 9 credits through MSUB. The Board of Trustees must now vote to ratify the new contract. Superintendent Terry Bauk says he feels the deal is fair for both teaching staff and the district and applauds reaching a long-term deal for the next superintendent after he retires in May. And a reminder, there is no school for Montana's public schools today and tomorrow as teachers attend educational events across the state. Also going on across the state today, the annual Great Montana Shakeout Drill. The earthquake that rattled Lincoln this past July and the many aftershocks that followed are a strong reminder that Big Sky Country is earthquake country. The goal of the exercise is to train people to drop, duck, cover, and even hold when a quake hits. Lewis and Clark Disaster and Emergency Services Coordinator Paul Spangler says the best way to survive a quake if you're inside a building is to ride it out in place and then exit when the quake is over.
It will probably take about 10 or 15 minutes, but it's a great way to get adults especially to be conditioned for the proper response, drop, duck, cover, and hold when the ground shakes.
The drill marks the 82nd year since the magnitude 6.3 quake hit Helena, killing 2 individuals and doing millions of dollars in damage to buildings. Now into some lighter news. Christmas came early for a Billings trucking company that learned it has the honors to transport this year's festive Christmas tree to the nation's capital. Whitewood Transport will depart from Eureka on November 8th and make the more than 2,300-mile journey to the Capitol. These 70-foot tall Capitol tree is in good hands. The driver, Larry Speakmeyer, has traveled more than 1.6 million miles without an accident. The truck will make several stops along the way, allowing people across the country to sign the wrapping on the tree. For Whitewood owner Mike Wilson, the opportunity to transport this tree to D.C. is an honor.
Part of our core values is to respect and support our community, and we do that through our gifts and services. What better way to do that than this? Because our community reaches far beyond Billings and far beyond Montana because we're a national carrier. We go all over the United States. So the honor to do this, there's 3.5 million trucks out there, and we're the only one hauling the Christmas tree. So it's a pretty big deal.
Several Montana communities are making handmade ornaments that will be transported to D.C. in pallets. The tree lighting ceremony takes place November 30th. Brett?